I just got a message that they're not seeing the Zoom link.
Yeah, I'll post it in there too, but we'll get it for you. Collect data and monitor progress. You know, we all know that's a big piece with our IEPs is that data collection and stuff like that. So Megan, if you can jump in and share with us your strategies for that a little bit, what you're doing in your class.
Absolutely. So all of my classes are distance learning. My district is 100% distance learning right now, and we use Google Meet. My district has told us that we can record actually we have to record all of our calls just in case there are behavior issues that need to be addressed. And so I have all of my classes recorded. And so when I'm doing assessments, I can work one-on-one with my students. I can have them set their Chromebooks down and then back up, and I can record our call and ask them to perform different skills for me. So running, skipping, jumping, you know, working on all of the different skills. And I can record that and watch it live as I'm doing the assessment. And then I'm also able to go back and watch the assessments again because I have the recording saved. So it's kind of nice because then I can check and make sure that I'm catching everything, making sure I didn't miss anything when I watched it the first time. And I can watch it over and over as often as I need to.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. It's a good strategy to be able to see that. Anne, I'm going to jump to you again. You were saying that you can't record, so if you can go through, you know, share.
That's correct. I am the only adapted PE teacher here in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I do Zoom, and some of my special ed teachers use Google Meet. So basically with Zoom and Google Meet, well, Zoom, I cannot record any of my students or my lessons.
You can go through, you know, share.
And so basically I rely like on my para-educators and the special educators that Zoom in at the time that I have their class. And I rely on them to provide the input. And unless I only have 1 or 2 students, then I can see what my students are doing. But I rely heavily on them. And also my parents that are working with them, or whoever the caregivers are with that child at that time. And I try to spotlight them to let them know I appreciate all that they do, and that's how I get through it.
Yeah, thanks. That parent connection is really important during this time for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Panelists, did someone else have something they wanted to add on this or added before that we missed?
Yeah, I was just saying. Oh.
No, go ahead, Jody.
I can't record anything. We're not allowed in our county to do anything recorded with our students. So I've had to get a little creative because there's a lot of different things happening in my classes at once, or one kid sometimes, but it's a lot. So I've worked on trying to use my paras a little bit when I do have a para come into the class, not giving them a whole lot of things to take, but like maybe one thing to look for that day, one check-in, one thing that I'm asking them to look at with that student, or maybe have them lead something very simply where it's just telling what to do and then I can watch. Another thing is my art teacher and I at my school, I'm at a public separate day school. We do a lot of co-teaching even when we're in normal operating conditions in brick and mortar. So we're trying to continue that. And we actually are able to do more of it now because it's virtual and there's some space and behavior issues. So we're doing a lot of co-teaching with combining art and movement and physical education activity with art. And then I can help her with looking out for things when it's her turn to be teaching. And then when I'm running the PE part of it or the active part, she's able as another teacher to have eyes and kind of keep an eye out and take a look at what I've been doing. So kind of trying to reach out and do that, trying to work hopefully with the physical therapist on some when it's not necessarily an overlap of services, but when we can either both do it and we have different kids we're looking at during the time or whatever, so we're not doing the same service, but using just other people, now that it's virtual, taking advantage of that.
We're using a hybrid approach. We're using both virtual and then non-virtual, with people that are perhaps in school. So we do see our students face to face. And but for our kids who are at home, we send home data collection sheets for the folks for them to assist with. We are using Google Forms. We're also, of course, allowing our parents to share video footage performance as they take the kids through the activities and skill performances. So.
All right, thank you. Just before we move on, those of you, now that everyone's gotten in here, we apologize again. We were trying to be kind of fancy with our technology and it did not work great. But thank you for your patience. Use the chat feature if you have questions, either at group or at an individual. We will still try to leave time at the end for some individual Q&A, but we'll probably go till about 10:45 with our questions that we generated and then have time after that. Our next question is, how do your adapted physical educators perform evaluations during remote/distance learning? And what assessment tools are used and how do they maintain validity and reliability? And this one, we're going to jump to Dr. Dillon right away.
Okay, so I really think that it would be wise for us as professionals to think carefully about doing initial evaluations virtually during this time. And there's a couple of reasons I say that, and that they are all based in mandates from IDEA. The first mandate is that, yes, we have those timelines that are set forth in CFR 300.301, that we have the timeline, the school district has to do the evaluation, but there's actually, if you keep reading through that section, there's an exception clause, and the exception clause says that this doesn't apply to the public agency if the parent of the child fails or refuses to produce the child for evaluation, i.e. bring them to us for evaluation. So there's the first part. The second part is that when we look at section 300.304, it's very clear that the assessment needs to be conducted by a person who is trained and knowledgeable. And so asking a parent, for example, to help us, sorry, I'm trying to admit people while I do this, asking a parent to try to help us assess a child from home remotely means that they're not someone who is trained and knowledgeable in the assessment. The other thing is that the law also indicates that the assessment should be administered in accordance with any instructions provided by the producer of the assessment. And I promise you that probably no one has looked at what if we had to, administer this virtually. It's not going to be in our procedures and our protocols that are used to ensure that we have valid and reliable results. So whenever possible, I would recommend that we not be doing these virtually. Look instead to do a socially distant but in-person assessment if you absolutely must conduct the assessment. I do know that some school districts have said that they would push pause, if you will, on the request to do an evaluation for adapted PE and other services, not just our service, until a point in time when the child can safely return to a school setting, either for the evaluation or for the return to face-to-face instruction. I would be very careful about asking parents to conduct the assessments for us or trying to administer it virtually. I think that puts us in a precarious situation. And I know that OT, PT, other SLP, other service providers are in the same boat, and they are opting for in-person, at least in as many situations as I have heard of.
Thank you, Dr. Dillon. To the rest of our panelists, if there are any of you that are doing in-person evals, having students come to your schools, if you'd be willing to talk about that at all right now during this time, or if maybe you're not allowed to do them at all in person. I don't know if have any of you any in person.
We are. We're able to. We're actually in person, and we have students remote. And my caseload is about 50-50, so I do both. So we have students come into the schools to have their evaluation done for all areas, which is really nice to have them come in and get those evaluations done in person.
In my district, we are allowed to do in-person evaluations. So my earlier question was with the assessments, that's more informal assessments, not initial evals or even re-evaluations. So we do have a handful of staff who are allowed to come in for testing, and they are given full PPE to do that testing.
And like Rich put in the chat, that we do have that part B of the informal assessment that we can do as well, that you can do in Minnesota too. So thanks, Rich, for that. All right, question number 3 is, some teachers are being told they need to do more synchronous APE sessions. What strategies have you seen for synchronous versus asynchronous learning? Synchronous being more that live, like a Zoom meeting, and then asynchronous being more at their own pace on their own time. And Megan, I know you've done some with both options, so if you can just talk briefly about that.
Yeah, so all of my classes, we actually switched to a block schedule because of if we go into hybrid, we're going to have fewer students in contact with staff. So we have 90-minute class periods. So we are required to have all of our classes meet synchronously for the first 20 to 30 minutes. And then that's usually when we'll do like our lessons and do any troubleshooting with our students. And then we send them out and say, now you've got this to work on. Go ahead, take the next 20, 30 minutes to work on that. And then we bring them back at the end of class again for synchronous. And then we can follow up and ask if they've had any questions or what they were struggling with. So it's kind of a nice mix for each class period that I've got. We can do both options.
Thanks, Megan. And Dr. Linda, you had talked a little bit in your answer just kind of about making sure we're really meeting the needs of your students and the families. So if you could go in more depth in there.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. You know, I think it's interesting that we have a district perhaps that's saying you need to do more asynchronous, the way that this question is more synchronistic type of sessions. And I would tell you, if you're placed under that requirement, then by all means follow your district requirements. Do that first and foremost. What struck me with the way this aspect was presented is that I think, you know, we as a profession, we work very hard to make sure we meet our students where they're at the time that we're doing something with them, assessing, working with them. And here is a situation where I think we also have to extend that to our parents. We need to meet our parents where they're at with even their technology understandings, capabilities. Our district's 180 square miles, but more so than that though, we have students who, parents who also identify as parents with disabilities. During the spring, one of my most poignant aspects of trying to reach out to a family at that time was the dad finally said to me, I don't know how to print the paperwork off from the email. I'm having problems with my printer. So right there, that was a situation where I needed to meet that parent where they were at. And so I think that's the same thing here with, I see some wonderful virtual gym, materials being put together and sites. And I applaud you for all of you who are doing that. But let's not forget where our parents might need some help with understanding connectivity and online instruction and how to, of course, navigate that. So that's my point with this question. Go for it though. If you're enjoying your virtual lessons and you're having success and you feel that you're reaching your students, by all means do that. Follow your district expectations in that regard, but let's not lose sight of where we need to meet our parents at with their technology abilities.
Thank you, Dr. Linda. That's great. Justin, do you have something you wanted to?
Yeah, I was going to jump in just off of Dr. Linda. For my current position, we do a lot of consult, and then we train providers at the district level to help implement those the AP goals on a daily basis. And so this virtual setting has been really an opportunity to get to know the parents at each one of the districts, in such greater detail. When I started with the caseload this year, my first phone calls and emails to them were asking how their family is doing. How did things go in the spring? What do you wish went better? Because then that's really going to help you shape that collaborative working relationship that we really should be doing across the board, regardless of the setting that the student's in. But I think right now it's just kind of highlighting the importance of that. So when I look at, the asynchronous versus synchronous question, I think a lot of it comes down to, like Dr. Linda said, you meet the parent where they're at, meet the family where they're at, and really try to tailor those services to fit into that framework.
Hey, Vinny, I just want to jump in real quick with one more suggestion. I would reiterate what Justin's saying. We have a golden opportunity right now, even though we're all stressed out and working way more hours than we ever knew were possible in a day. But that we could potentially build a bridge and move APE out of it's very highly marginalized position closer to being in the mainstream, if you will, of those services that are provided. to kids with disabilities. But the other thing is that Linda said, you got to meet your parents where you're at. And we've had, even though my students aren't teaching in the public schools per se, some of them are, but not all of them. We have had like porch pickups, if you will, where materials have been delivered. So like Linda said, if I don't know how to print it, print those visual supports, the global visual schedule, whether they're used for a synchronous or asynchronous lesson, but whatever that student needs to be successful, and then have it made available either at the school for them to pick up, or we've had folks who have dropped it off at on the front porches of their students. So.
Can I make one more comment? You know, the other thing I think that we're all have to be mindful of is that we do have minutes that we need to legally meet, and so. You know, when it comes right down to it, if I make plan B with the kids who I have live, so we're going to use Zoom or Teams. Our district's moving towards all use of Teams. We're going to eventually fade out Zoom, but you know, but I always make sure we have a plan B. And so I turn to my parents and I say, if this doesn't work, if we're having a bad technology day, what do you want me to connect with you by? How else can we do this? Many of them will either say, most of them say FaceTime, you know, or Skype, but most of them respond in FaceTime. And I say this just because, bottom line, I want to show my due diligence, doing my very good faith effort to make sure that I'm trying to meet my minutes. And then I document all of that. You know, I document like crazy in our electronic SPED system that we have, so.
Yeah, I'd like to add too, so last quarter when we first went, starting in March, we were completely asynchronous. Basically last year. So everything we did was asynchronous. It was providing activities, giving pieces. This year, my county has made an incredible 180 and is almost 100% synchronous. So we are synchronous Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, with Wednesday being your async day. And they set that up for if we go back hybrid, it'll be the cleaning day. So they tried to set it up that way. We're on this crazy rotational schedule where people don't really know when they're coming. And at first, I have to say, I was really thrown off by the idea of trying to do all this synchronous, thinking, when are my families going to be getting in? How are they going to be doing this? But what I've learned, and I know this is a question later too, is the connection that I've been able to make with the families through synchronous has been really beneficial. It's something that surprised me. I've been able to also bring in a lot of things that like hopefully the students will still see. So instead of just sharing my screen with pictures, you know, I'm still holding up all my old school PCS symbols. So they're getting this, like, this is still, you know, Miss Jody and her stuff. And I can be like, you know, it's time, and I make schedules just like we do. I went to my school and was able, like, 1 or 2 days to get everything that I could. And on top of that, I'm doing a lot of green screen videos and a lot of different work to make it more fun and engaging, since they don't want to watch this all day. So even when I'm synchronously teaching, I'm playing like asynchronous videos through with them. And then I can also post those videos for those families that can't get in. So I'm able to do a little bit of this combo with, at the exact same time, synchronous and asynchronous. And the benefit of that is too, for all you teachers, is it kind of kills two birds with one stone. So while I'm planning for my synchronous lesson, I'm providing something that I can use asynchronously for my families that either couldn't get in, or I just did a huge Mario video where, you know, I'm dressing up in costumes. And my parents and the families are saying, you know, they're in these synchronous learnings all day, from math to ELA to all this. And they're finding that they come to PE and it's their chance to breathe a little bit, to have fun while we're also still doing work, while we're doing this. So I'm getting this nice connection. The problem with asynchronous is I don't get a lot of attention because it becomes a time off, because they have so much else going on that if I'm asking them to do this here and there's not a time they're supposed to log in and do it, I don't get it as much. So even if I do some of my asynchronous work during it, and then what I'm providing simply for asynchronous, instead of lessons where they're required to do things, different things, I'm providing activities. I've got two different rooms. I've got a Bitmoji room, but then I also have an easier way when we talk about how to access just through direct links for families who can't work through it, where they go, and I took a picture of the sensory room of my school and I put myself in it with a bunch of sensory videos. So if those parents need to play a sensory video asynchronously and walk away for a minute. I mean, my school is, my students have minimal independence during this process, whether we were in person or not. So it's the parents all day. And I don't know, I'm sure lots of you, I have a 7-year-old who doing all this is even hard enough, and he can be fairly independent once we get on. So I think that, you know, trying to do that, but the synchronous scared me off for a while, but don't let it. Teach just like you would. Get your symbols. Don't think you have to share your screen every other time. Don't think everything you have to do. Sometimes it's just I play the music and I stand up and they watch me dance just like they would in the school. you know, things like that. It doesn't have to be as hard tech-wise. You know, there's great things out there like Pear Decks for them to do, but sometimes it's as simple as we have learning boxes going home too. So I hold up still the did you like it, yes or no, and in their learning box this week, they're all getting yes, no's. But sometimes they just point at their computer, and you know, it's awesome. Like at least getting them involved to they put their finger out, just like we do in the class. So you can do the synchronous just like as if you're in class. It just looks a little different. And isn't that kind of our job? We just look a little different when we do things. But it works. So don't let it scare you off, because I was at first. I was like, this isn't gonna work. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, thank you, Jody. We're getting a lot of requests, Jody, to see that dance that you do. I don't know, it's just what the people want to see. So
I'll send you the already made asynchronous one you can share.
all right. No, thank you. And Dr. Linda had talked a lot about like our service time and our minutes, and that kind of leads us into our next question of what are your districts doing as far as the IEPs? Are they switching to contingency plans? Are they doing remote IEPs? How has this kind of impacted your adapted PE service? And we're gonna jump to you right away and kind of see what your districts are doing in North Carolina, and then what the rest of the panelists jump in with how it's different maybe in their district.
Okay, but kudos to the last question to our panel. Great answers, and I agree totally. Got to meet where our parents are, and but in North Carolina, and basically in my district, we are going to what they call the remote contingency plans. So we provide. You talk about how many minutes that the student has on their IEP, and then what's going to work for that student during either asynchronous or synchronous learning. Right now we're in synchronous, but in 2 weeks we're supposed to go back AA day and BB day, but our children with disabilities will go back every day. So we'll see how that works. But so that's what we've done, just the contingency plans. And it might be, you know, like Dr. Linda said about meeting where the students are, it might be they get 30 minutes with me direct, but synchronously online, it might just be 5. I mean, just because they can't handle being online for that at that time. And then when they come back to school, we'll go back to meeting their IEP needs, socially distanced, I guess.
All right, thank you, Ann. Did someone else from the panelists want to jump in on maybe something different that they're doing in their district, or is that kind of the same across the country there?
I'll contribute. For our kids, every one of our students that has an IEP, they have a virtual goal, of course, and then the face-to-face goal. So we spent a lot of time walking through different scenarios of aspects that could happen with those goals. Yeah, I think, you know, we had a contingency plan, and we decided as a department not to change any minutes, whether we were face-to-face or, you know, online or live with our kids. And we did that because you know, adapted PE services is not a class that happens every day. Right. And, you know, it's inconsistent, well, not inconsistent, but it's, you know, it's depending on how it's scheduled. And so it's not offered. And so we didn't see a rationale to be able to decrease services, if you will. And we didn't feel comfortable legally by changing them, even though we could have done it through an IEP meeting, whether it was a brief meeting. So, you know, we've kept our services the same. And what I've actually found with my kids who are virtual, I'm spending more time with them, and, you know, to make sure that one, just like today, we're well connected. We've got the parents in there. We're discussing things. I'm also kind of co-teaching my parent the different skills based upon the IEP goals of the students. So what I find is, you know, I've actually extended my meeting times with my kids live, because I want to make sure, one, I can cover the skills that I need to focus on, but also I have to give that time to the parent so that they're understanding as well. And that it's kind of a co-engagement. I'm engaging not only the student, but the parent as well. So I've found that I've been giving more minutes, and again, just log it all.
Awesome, thank you. Megan, I'm gonna go to you just for a second here, just because I know you're in Minnesota, and I just wanted to, I think you were doing continuous learning plans that are the same throughout remote hybrid, in person. Is that correct? I just want to check with you and see.
Yeah, so I have to create a continuous learning plan for all of my students that have an IEP. And for those of you that maybe missed at the beginning, so I'm teaching special ed this year, previously taught adapted for the last 6 years. And so I have to create a continuous learning plan, which is basically just an IEP, but it's 3 times as long. And so it's got what is it for distance, what is it for hybrid, and what is it for in-person. And because my classes have switched to 90-minute blocks, same thing, my students are actually getting a lot more minutes than they were previously. So they had just, 7 classes a day, and now they've only got 4. So when they're in their special ed classes, they're in there for a lot longer. So they're getting a lot more minutes. And yeah, that's the continuous learning plan. And then I was typing out an answer. So someone had said they're struggling with students not showing up for live Zooms. So real quick, just to answer that, I created video tutorials of how to join a meeting, and I've sent that to my students. I'm at a middle school level, so I also CC the parents and kind of tattle on my students, and their parents get on them right away, and they get right into my calls. I've actually got, I think, everyone except for one student who still claims that she's having technology issues. And then the other thing that I've done is I set up a Google Voice number. And so I will just text my students and be like, hey, you're not in class right now, you need to be here. And here's the Google code, get into my class, and then they'll respond. So like right now, I've got a student who's texting me about another class that she's supposed to be in. And that's helped a lot too. If they can just reach out to me and by text, normally they would just pop in my classroom and talk to me, but it's been really helpful to get students more engaged and get them into my classes, is tattling on them and then texting them.
One of the things that I've been able to do is work with my special ed teachers. If they are already on with the student and they're coming to the end of their session, they will invite me to that so that I can get on, and then they leave, and then I can just continue on with it with adapted PE. So that's worked really well with some of those hard parents that are really hard to get a hold of. So it's worked for me.
Awesome, thank you. So we do have we're at 10:45, so we have about 10 to 15 minutes. If you do have a question, a general question we haven't covered, just please do put it in the chat and we'll try to get to them. I'm going to go on to our next question we have created, but we'll try to get to anyone's questions. If you can put them in the chat room, that'd be awesome. Our next question is, have you found any technology tools that you feel are especially helpful during this time? And I'm going to add to it as well and just kind of say, or are you a type of person that maybe is leaning, like trying to get a little bit away from that technology piece too, for some of our students? But Kelly, I know you had some good technology ideas, so we're going to jump to you right away with this one.
Yeah, and the first thing I started was running to social media and signing up for Facebook groups and seeing what everybody else is doing, jumping onto meetings from the West Coast to the East Coast, and just talking with people and what's working for students, their students, our students, and finding out, I made my first Bitmoji page. I didn't even know what a Bitmoji was until 2 weeks ago, So then I sit down and I self-teach myself and look at what people have done. And my goal is, from all those meetings and finding out what works for my students, I really would like to do that Bitmoji page, which I've put together, but also doing things specific to doing that synchronous learning, because I get to see my students one-on-one, and then taking those links to videos of maybe myself versus all the things. There's so many things out on the web, but there are specific things that I want my kids to know, doing that, and so that they can tap into that during the week, so that when I come back, then we can do that's specific to their goal. So trying to reach out and have them do more things asynchronously before I see them next time. And so that has been my big goal, and just being able to do a lot of visuals, taking I use a lot of lesson pics, which is the kind of the old board maker, and using that, and it puts it in strips for you. You know, it already takes things in just the way you want to lay it out. And so even like the song Tony Chestnut, you know, I do the first part of that with my students and I sing it because I need to slow down. I need to have kids engage. And then I use lesson pics to use all the toe, picture of the toe, then the knee, then, you know, so put that just out there on the screen. And I'm also giving, I've made a whole bag of, just a gallon bag of equipment to give to my parents so that we have some of the same equipment. And so I've started putting in like the flashcards of the body parts or yoga poses, because what I'm finding when I'm working with students online is that they are not always looking at me. They're looking at their mom, their caregiver, but so if I add that piece into giving that to the parent, then we both have it. So whether they're looking at me or they're looking at the parent, they can see what we're doing.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. Ann, I know you had joined maybe a national group as well. If you want to talk about that quickly.
Yes, because being old school, technology was kind of scary for me, and so I got on Facebook, like Kelly said that she did, and joined. I was already a part of some different groups, but then found that group that Emily and Liz did over in Maryland, and they had once a week a Zoom meeting. So people Zoomed in from all across the country, and different topics were discussed. And so it was just nice to feel like you weren't all in this alone. And through those times, it helped me get stronger in technology. Still not there, but I'd rather be in person like all of us and be with my students. So.
Awesome.
I'm just gonna say tech-wise, if you don't have a green screen, get one. It's like $20 on Amazon. I had no idea what I was doing before about 2 weeks ago. There's a lot of free things. I use iMovie because I have a Mac. It's actually not that hard. I'm trying to take on coding right now. That's hard. So I haven't figured that one out yet. But the green screen, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if I can get a fun one moving soon. But I have a Zoom meet with a coding company. But the green screen's actually really easy. YouTube tutorials are all over. It's not hard to go through. And I had no idea what I was doing. And simply just putting yourself, I did a welcome video where I talked about different things and I said like 5 different topics we were going to do. And I changed like to a meditation type background for one, a yoga background for one. I showed a baseball screen for one. And I got all these comments back from parents because I put that out as like an announcement. So people were talking about how to get people engaged and want to come. I put out like little teasers using it or like little trailers to my class. And people, even if they just want to come to make fun of me, I'm not sure, but it's okay because they're showing up a little bit more. So just try to find something fun. Be that class that they don't even realize they're working in. You know, and just try to make it that way. But if you don't have a green screen, spend the $20 and nail it to your wall. It's awesome.
If I may.
Actually, yeah, go ahead, Linda.
I was just going to say, if I may, I'll contribute. Dave Martinez is another national toy winner. I think it was 2009 from Georgia. And he, too, to reiterate what Jody was talking about, has got some fun things that he's done with the green screen. So if you haven't seen Dave Martinez, he's got a YouTube channel, and you can take a look at what he's doing.
Yeah. And I would look at low-tech options to marry with your high-tech options. I know Jody has done these where she's dressed up like Mario. I have one of my students dress up in like hairband attire, sweatbands, big hair, played the AC/DC in the background because that's what his client wanted, and looked at the props and the other things, right, that keep the kids engaged, absolutely. We've had a lot of success with using like visual timers on the screen as well. So if we're asking a student to do something that they see, okay, I just have to keep going a little bit longer and then there'll be a break. The other thing that I think that we need to be careful of is if we're going to use certain pieces of technology with the expectation or maybe even just the hope that our students would use them away from us, like Work It Kids, that we take the time to teach them how to use it. And that's a part of our valuable instruction because it's helping them be physically active away from us. Same thing would be said for teaching a parent or a child how to use something like Exercise Buddy. That is valuable instruction and we need to not discount it.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Thank you all very much. Justin, I'm going to go to you. I think maybe you had a question or two ready from our chat.
Yep. The first question is, are schools utilizing the contingency learning plans, distant learning plans, hybrid learning plans on SPED forms to rewrite entire goals so they're able to be met in these different settings?
I can kind of take a stab at that. We have, in some cases, need be, after speaking with our parents, changed students' goals, because if we go virtual, we want the parents' buy-in. We want the parents to be comfortable with the goals that we're identifying for them to potentially work at home. And then we also open up the door. What equipment needs do you need? Do you need data sheets to let us know about behavior, our successes? And so we're doing all of that. And but yeah, I think it's important to connect with your parents and find out what goals are they also wanting to agree upon. I would also, though, make sure you tie those goals back to an assessment, to areas of concern, so that you're still working forward on the kids' needs, the individualized instruction for the student. Because, I had parents during the spring who were saying, oh, we went on a walk, we did this, we did that outside. Well, that's great. That's being physically active. Kudos to you. But what about the goals? What about, and you were in the IEP meeting and agreed to these goals. You were part of that committee and you said yes. So what do we need to do to help you with these things now? Thank you for all that you're doing with your kids. But now let's talk about the goals. So we've had to do all of those types of things and have those types of conversations. So.
Thank you, Dr. Linda. I think that's great input. For sure. And the big piece, tying it back to the assessment and what those original deficits that we identified were, I think is vitally important. Yes, we take into account, the parent reports and the equipment and space that they have, but being able to tie that goal back, if you do change it, to the assessment and the original, target skills and deficits that you're working towards is extremely important. So thank you for highlighting that. Anybody else want to jump in on that question?
I've not had to change too many of my goals just because I am still able to work on a lot of them. Like I said, I can say, put down your Chromebook. I want you to practice running. Just run around, set your Chromebook. I've had a kid who set his Chromebook in front of the window and he's like, I'm gonna be right back. You can see the front yard, right? I said, yeah. And he's like, all right. And he just goes and runs around the front yard. I'm like, awesome. There you go. I got you running. While you're out there, go skip. I can ask them to do all sorts of different things. Or if they've got, enough living room space, they can set their Chromebook down and do a lot of the skills that I'm asking them to do. I've also asked parents to record if their son or daughter's outside playing catch. Just record them, send me a quick video. Again, because I have that Google Voice number, the parents can just send me a quick text, send me the video. And I was really worried about having a Google Voice number and having students text me and, outside of contract hours, but they don't want to be bothered by teachers outside of school days. So I've not had any issues thus far with parents or students contacting me outside of the classroom time or outside of the school day. So there's that also. The only things that I have had to change is things like, so I've gotten some students that are moved in and they will participate in PE with 3 or fewer prompts or, different behavior things, because we aren't face-to-face, we aren't virtual or in person in class. I've had to change those, but I take into account things like, are they engaged? Can I see them on the video? Are they listening to me? Are they spending their entire time in the chat, asking their friends what they're doing this weekend? Or just different things like that. Do they seem still engaged in class, or do I have to give more corrective feedback to them as well throughout the class period? Those are mostly the things that I've had to change as far as goals, is those like behavior pieces.
Perfect. Thank you, Megan.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? We've got time for a few more? Or... Dr. Dillon?
Justin, can I just make one quick comment?
Yes.
We've been talking about the contingency plans. We've been talking about, the parents engaged, etc. I think that one of the things that I've seen is that because we're not face-to-face and we don't have this lovely equipment closet at our disposal, and we don't have the designated floor space, etc., that we're seeing a shift, or we're having to make a shift to maybe more leisure activities or other types of physical activities that might not necessarily be the core of our K-12 curriculum. And I think that's okay, but we need to be cognizant of that. So looking to create opportunities for our students to learn how to be physically active in their backyard, with their family, in their community, at the park, etc., is just as valuable as their ability to be able to play in a pickup basketball game or something of that nature. So we just kind of need to be forward thinking on that as we develop options for hybrid or fully virtual, where the equipment may be limited, the space may be limited, etc.
Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Dillon. Yeah, I know that there are people that are going to have to take off here to go to other sessions. We'll keep recording and we're going to finish up. We have a couple more questions we'd like to get to, and some from the chat and maybe one of our own too. So we'll keep going and recording it. You can jump back later and watch the end of it if you have to go now. Feel free to bombard our chat there and say thank you to our panelists. We really, really appreciate them jumping in here. So if you do have to leave, make sure you say a quick thank you to them before you head out. Justin, I'll give it back to you.
Sounds good. So looking at the next question here, we've got a question about how are AP teachers creating lessons for students with severe or multiple disabilities? And currently the setting is remote. So Jody, this one might be a good one for you, I think.
Yeah, so you're gonna get sick and tired of me saying it, but there's some things I'm doing with the green screen. So I'm trying to do some visual tracking too with some of these students. So that's my more independent. So for my not independent, I'm still starting with yoga, with warm-ups, with stretching, working with the families that are there with them to try and help, playing the music, doing different things like that. So my current video that I'm working on, it's not done yet, is I have my green screen and I bought the full like green morph bodysuit, you know, so that I'm kind of gone in it. And I have a little picture of myself and it's going to move around the screen and I'm going to have simple backgrounds and we're going to play like tag. So I'm going to have them trying to like trace and find me and then like freeze and like try to tag Miss Jody through it. So students that I can a little bit can reach out and try to hit the computer or touch it. Ones that aren't, I'm doing that. I'm doing other ones where I'm putting the green screen up, and you don't have to have a green screen. If you have that, you can pretend to be on a bike or something. I'm just doing it for the background. I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do a lot of like leaning. So like I'm going to follow like just a, you know, get a GoPro YouTube video that I'll put myself in front of and we'll all lean to one side when the bike goes that way. And then we'll lean to the other. I'm doing a surfing one for my students that can stand. And I'm actually working with my art teacher and she's having them create their own surfboards just out of long paper and design it. And then they'll stand on it. And we're going to, or put their feet under, or put their hands on it. And we're going to practice like with our balance going back and forth. A roller coaster one I'm doing where we're going to work on stretching our hands up and moving like back and forth like that. So I'm doing a lot of things like that. I'm doing visual tracking and little bits of movement. So I'm going to do a bubble pop where my students all have different bubbles and I'll do it seated. So if you looked at my Mario one, that was standing and punching and knocking. I'm going to do one where it's really simple and it's going to move a lot slower and it'll be like popping the bubble. So they'll have to try to move their finger out and do it at the same time and pop the bubble. I actually am doing one with costume's been a problem. I bought a unicorn hat and we're going to try to pop the bubble with our head, you know, and point with the horn so that like students that are working on just moving their heads up or moving them side to side, doing that. And I can, I'm sending home some different things in my learning box. I'm going to send home bells to parents so that I can be like, you know, if the balloon's on the right, bring it to the right of, you know, your child to try and help that they pop that way. And then I'll make a big popping sound on the video so that it'll come out and different things. So, and you don't have to have a green screen. You can think I could record those with my black background. I bought a $12 sheet. I spoke with my vision teacher and he recommended that a black sheet in the background. And when I have some of those classes, I wear a yellow t-shirt or a bright colored shirt so that I'm more visible. I have winter gloves, just like those basic ones that are yellow. And so then I can use my hand up in front of it and it's a lot more, it pops a lot better for them to see. Some of my pictures that might be on the other side are different colored backgrounds for when the students need different colored backgrounds, different things like that. So we're still going through some different things. Like I said, my school's working on different things. So I'm trying to get some scarves sent out to them. But if not, I'm having tissues and I'm having parents work on, you know, dropping the tissue and we're watching it fall. and I have like a snow scene in the background and we're watching it go. I use a lot of switch adapting if you've ever seen me with leaf blowers, but I'm still having parents, if they are comfortable with it, grabbing a fan or a hair dryer and trying to clear off their kid's tray, like see if they can help move it and clean up their backyard by cleaning up the tray. And we're just using little pieces of paper. So we're creating our snowballs by using finger dexterity and moving our hands and open and close and grasp. So we create all the little balls, then we're putting them down and we're working on moving back and forth. If they don't have something like that, I have them work on holding something with their family that makes wind and kind of blows things down. Just doing something like this, it'll knock down a paper towel tube, great. You know, something that they can use that way. Having them tie things. We have a couple parents in our school who are working on these learning boxes, and luckily one of them who's worked with me a lot in PE, so I can actually say like, hey, we've collected all these toilet paper rolls, tie a string to all of them and send it home. And then the parents have something like that if they can't even make it. So I have directions on my page how to do it, but making videos that are simple and fun and engaging. So while I have those big kicking ones, I'll put on my Mario hat too sometime and do something little. I'm doing if any of you know, there's that Eric Carle head to toe book, and it's all about moving. There's a great song with it. So hence why you saw there's a camel in it. So I've just ordered hats for every single animal that's in it. So instead of me just playing a YouTube video that's a picture of the book or of the camel doing it, I have this. I have a seal hat that I'm going to do. So I'm doing all these things just to try to make it fun. I've been great. I found there's a lot of like websites or Facebook groups where I'm like, hey, I'm a teacher. Does anybody have any old costumes they just want to get rid of? And people have donated things to me. They've given it. I've gone to the thrift store. It's Halloween right now is the time. You can get anything and everything. I'm going to do what did I do? A Waldorf instead of Waldo. And I bought like a Target Waldo shirt, and I'm going to put myself in different places. And then some of it will be teaching about learning. I'm going to do a lot of social emotional health. There's a lot of different things. I'm doing lessons on why it's weird that we're here and what's different. And I'm talking about COVID a little bit and talking about that. I'm going to do mask wearing, because getting our students back and wearing masks, especially for my students who have more significantly impacting disabilities with autism and behaviors, it's going to be hard. So I'm wearing a mask sometimes to say, like, this is what it might look like so that you see me now when it's not as scary there. Like, this is what it looked like. And I wear it for a few minutes and I take it off in the middle of my class and trying to incorporate. So I've gone away from all just physical aspects of the lesson to the SEL aspect, to health. You know, I'm a certified health teacher and I've never really fully taught it. And I think that's silly, you know, looking at myself now with what we teach. So I'm trying to incorporate, you know, a little bit of each of my classes into that. There's some fun different videos, making up songs. So I think you have to think, what would I do in brick and mortar in normal operating conditions? And you'll be surprised how much of it you can actually still do. It's hard because you're taking out that physical guidance aspect, but there's a lot that you can still do. And you have to think about what an awesome opportunity you have to train parents in these things that you don't normally get, you know, and now they get to see what you do. So that's something that does it. And my physical educator, that's Brad Wieners. Yeah, so Brad does some awesome things as well. He's who got me into all my switch adapting back in the day, and going through that. So he's got great stuff up there. Do I have any videos to share? Let me see what I do. If not, I'm going to put my email here in the chat. I am awful at email. Don't ask Justin and Vinny about that. You can see their faces. But I will also put my cell phone because I'm really good at text. So you can yell at me and say, please check your email. And I'll start to put together some different things and share. And I know that Liz and Emily are going to do more of the Maryland things. And if they weren't, I just blasted them. So now they're going to have to. The Maryland trainings, and I'll give them some of that information to put on too. But I'll put it in here, and I'm happy to share anything that I have. I have a Facebook page that's Adapted Physical Education Resources from Cedar Lane. I'll put on there, and I've been trying to share some of my like Mario videos on there and the YouTube links. I did a Rocky one, you know, and just different things. So you can do them. You just get outside your comfort zone. I hate being on screen. I'm not an early childhood teacher. I don't really like the silly costume thing, but I'm kind of loving it now that we're here. But it is not my world. I'm middle and high school. But I'm finding my middle and high schoolers are really liking this even more so than I'm liking it. You know, it's making my life fun as opposed to just sitting here and teaching this way. It's a lot more fun. And if you make videos, you don't have to do it 700 times. You just get to play it every time you're on. So I hope that helped a little bit, but I'm happy. I'm going to.
Yeah, thanks, Jody. That is phenomenal stuff. So I know I'll be looking for those resources and videos too. I think a lot of our kids could benefit from it down here. So, all right, Vinny, do we want to ask another question from our list?
I would say one more, and then better, not from our list. If you have one more from the audience, that would be
Let's see, we do have a question. How are other AP teachers addressing some of the language barriers with parents in regards to instruction or assignments?
I can speak to that if you'd like me to.
That'd be great.
You know, in Texas, we have a lot of course, a variety of different languages in our district. We have over 30,000 students now, district-wide. But so we have a lot of different interpreters and translators coming in and out. Primarily, though, on my caseload, I have students who are Spanish speaking. And of course, I cannot speak highly enough of Google Translate. In fact, we've found out that that's probably one of the better ones versus some other things that you might tap into. It's a little more realistic. And so I use that frequently with my parents. But we also make sure in our meetings, of course, that everything is translated, and you have to be able to give that delay in those meetings for the translator to do their part. So yeah, I mean, we absolutely take care of those things. I also work in a district that has kids who are deaf. We have the Regional Day School for the Deaf here in Denton. So those kids articulate through 4 different settings, of course, pre-K, elementary, middle school, high school. And so when we have students who are deaf or need that support, we make sure if the individual cannot sign, then we have an interpreter there for those students as well. So that's what I'll contribute to that question.
Thank you, Dr. Linda. Anybody else want to jump in on that one?
No, just to piggyback off Dr. Linda's, just meeting with our deaf and hard of hearing specialist. She said it's just awesome if they have lessons sent to them ahead of time so that they can sign it ahead of time and then get it to the students before the class. So Justin, do you have another question from our participants?
Yeah, so we've got one that is asking about what groups y'all are in on Facebook/social media, and if we can include those groups that have helped you. So I guess if anybody wants to speak about a particular group, or maybe we include it in the chat here and we can put a list together that we can provide with the recording as well.
I really like the Adapted PE Specialist Facebook page. I've gotten a lot of ideas from them as well as others, but that's my go-to.
I watch the PE Geeks. I stay pretty attuned to them. They have a variety of people that are doing just incredible things. And so I watch that. And, you know, we also have Canvas for PE teachers, a group out of Missouri. And so I don't know if you're using those types of education or instructional platforms. In Denton, we have to use Seesaw and Canvas. And so that type of aspect of putting things in those instructional platforms was a little unnerving for me, but there's help in that regard as well if you're looking for something like that. So.
All right, and we do have one more. So this is if you have to take an extended leave, so maternity or sick leave, how would you suggest getting students' minutes met? Could we pre-record several lessons and then still have families use Google Forms to collect the data? 80% of this teacher's caseload is face-to-face, but they're currently remote due to a high-risk category that they're in. So how would y'all handle a situation like that?
Being from a team that has had, there's 4 of us in Denton, and we've had a young mother who's been able to have now a couple of children, and we celebrate that with that young family. And but you know, she went on maternity leave, and so we had the fortunate luxury, I think, of having folks from Dr. Dillon, some of her students, come out and help and assist. And so those folks were certified teachers already, and then studying adapted physical education under her wing and some of the other faculty members that are there. So we're very grateful to have that help and assistance. So I don't know if the person who's presenting this question has the opportunity to try to look into finding someone who might serve as a substitute or connect with a nearby university that might be able to funnel a student, someone in there to help and assist. Otherwise, maybe see if you can teach virtually, since we're in that mode. You might be able to teach from home for as long as you can, and still observe your, although I don't know, if you're under the Federal Medical or Family Medical Leave Act, I don't think you're supposed to do any type of instructions at all. I think there are those restrictions placed on that. And so we had to be very careful when that happened for us in our district to our colleague who was had her children. So just be aware of what rules you have to follow, and keep reaching out, see if you can get some help.
I would second that. What Linda's saying is make sure even though we're in this virtual state, if you will, that we're not being taken advantage of. There should be a sub, which as we did when we helped cover in Denton ISD, my students served as long-term subs. Yes, the videos that you would be creating would serve as, if you will, the predetermined lesson plan activities that we would leave if we were face-to-face leaving sub-plans. But be mindful that you are following either FMLA or other HR policies and doing that. The other thing I'll say is, because it kind of fits in this category, we're coming up against interesting and new challenges in addition to the old challenges that we regularly face as APE professionals. Do know it's not necessarily a Facebook group, though we do have a Facebook page and a Twitter handle. But the National Consortium for PE for Individuals with Disabilities is an advocacy group and a professional organization that you can look to if you're running into some of these kind of weird challenges and need help navigating it. We have been an assistance to the situation in Portland. We're working with a group in Maine and in South Carolina, etc. So you're not alone in the U.S. in facing challenges with regard to contingency plans or being asked to not do your services, things of that nature. So reach out to the people if you feel like your district's going down that path.
Thank you, Dr. Dillon. Don't forget that you've been in supportive programs in Colorado as well. No, thank you for that. And just thank you to all our panelists. I do have one more final question we'll ask, but I want to be respectful of our panelists' time and our participants' time. But panelists, I just want to say again, thank you. You have no idea how many students that you impacted today just by sharing your knowledge with all these other people that can then take it back to their students. So thank you so much for it. It's very appreciated. Our last question is, going forward now as we return back to in-person, are there any certain strategies that you see beneficial for safely implementing adapted PE? You know, as some of you maybe have students already returning, some of you are going to have them returning maybe in the fall or spring or something, but I'll just open it up to anybody that has any thoughts on that.
Well, I'll jump at it, I guess. First and foremost, I just firmly believe that what we do, the unique special set of skills that we have covered by those 15 national standards, if we're CAPE certified, I take that very seriously, and I don't think that we can overlook the benefits of teaching kids face-to-face. That being said, you know, we're in this scenario and situation, and you know, I think always remember, follow what your district wants you to do first and foremost, even though sometimes you may not completely understand or agree, perhaps even. I'd be very careful though. Reach out to people who can help you. You've got people on this panel that are in those positions to be able to do that. And I'm really kind of thinking of course, Dr. Susanna Dillon. I cannot overlook Dr. Sue Tarr, who is on this and is part of the organizing aspect of all of this. But there's a lot of strong people across the nation that can help. But do your due diligence and document. If you don't document, it didn't happen. And so do what you have to do and show your good faith in trying to deliver your services. And hopefully your district will support you and be behind you. I think I kind of lost track of what the question was. Did I even answer the question?
Great answer. Great answer. Anybody else? Kelly, I know you had maybe unmuted.
We are in person, and we have been given masks. We have been given masks clear masks, so like students who are deaf or hard of hearing can still see our lips. So we have those. We have face shields. We are given gloves. We have 2 different types of cleaners for equipment. One that I think 2 or 3 minutes, and another one leave on 10 minutes. So some real good safety protocols, and we are just cleaning away, and just know that it takes more time to do those type of things, and schedule more time in between. That's what I'm finding, and sometimes it takes a very long time to clean if you're using a lot of equipment with kids. But again, both in person and remote, following the goals and objectives, following the IEP, you know, doing the assessments, linking those to their goals, and just doing everything that we do as adaptive PE teachers, no matter if it's remote or in person.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you everyone for jumping in here and participating. I think there's a ton of good valuable information. We'll make sure that we get the recorded link to Sue, the recorded link of the Zoom, so that if you did miss part of it, you can jump in and check it out again. Justin, anything you want to add?
No, I just, again, want to reiterate what Vinny said. Thank you to the presenters for, stepping in here and providing your valuable expertise. And thank you for all of you attendees who handled our technology issues at the beginning so well, and you jumped over into this. Vinny and I really appreciate that, and we hope that, you're able to take this information and impact your kids, because that's ultimately the reason we wanted to bring this panel together, was to impact more kids and get information out there so that they can continue to receive, high quality APE services no matter where they're learning or what situation they're in. And all of you are doing that. All of you are capable of doing that. And we really appreciate your passion and your drive in this field.
And enjoy the Minnesota DAPE conference, everybody. Panelists, did you want to say anything at all before we close out the meeting?
I just want to say thank you for the invite. It was a pleasure and an honor. Thank you so much.
I agree. I was going to say one last tech note. If you don't have a second monitor, get one. I know you see me looking at 2 things. It's the greatest thing you'll do when you're teaching live and have your computer. That's just my webcam. If you want like something to just make your life a little bit better, use an old TV. I got an old TV. And it will make your life so much better. You can see your kids and your data or anything you're sharing at the same time.
And thank you everyone for being here.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Justin, I think we're good, and go jump into some more.